I want to talk to you all about winning a culture war, building a parallel economy, succeeding in boycotts, shaping mainstream American culture, bringing it back to some strong moral-based values, while still recognizing that we have a long way to go in being better people. I love the idea that the Second Amendment is being reinforced. That if you look back at the 80s and you look at gun rights and everything, it was actually a lot harder to own a gun back then than it is now. So, in fact, we are not losing our rights to keep and bear arms. There have been some setbacks, but we have been winning over the past few decades. These are all great things. We got a long way to go. We want to make sure we keep the good moral values, get rid of the bad ones. And that's what I see in the Bud Light scandal, the Bud Light boycott. That's what I see with Sound of Freedom. That's what I see with the Public Square app. Download Public Square if you have not already, because there's a whole bunch of companies that want to sell products that believe in American values, believe in family values, good morals. And what I find with these businesses on apps like Public Square is they are good, honest, sane, rational people. For the most part, nobody's perfect. But the world I see is a traditionally and classically liberal one, as America had been for a long time. And I'm not saying the modern colloquial version of liberal, which is the story you see here, which is, weird leftist stuff. I'm talking about raising a family right, hard work, personal responsibility, and recognizing that, we want to have individual rights and liberties and protect those that are rooted in the Constitution. We have, by doing so, made this country the greatest country on earth. But now we're facing very serious competition with the BRICS nations. And it's problematic, as the left would say. I bring all that up because I want to talk to you about this story. I want to talk to you a bit about Bud Light. And it's not really about Bud Light, just about all of it. You see, the story that we're seeing right now is sad Dylan Mulvaney flees to Peru and complains she no longer feels safe in the U.S. after Bud Light fiasco. Trans influencer frolics with llama and hires a shaman. I saw this story and I see a lot of people tweeting it. I think it's important to highlight where we are with the Bud Light story because Costco recently the other day dropped it. Not as a major chain, but many locations apparently have this symbol. It's the Star of Death, indicating they're not going to be restocking the brand. Bud Light has now dropped, I believe, we have the story here, to 14th place among beers from number 1. I mean, this is massive. This is massive. And so I had to wonder about a story like this, because, again, I see culture warriors posting this. The Daily Mail obviously running the story saying, Dylan Mulvaney flees. Flees? Oh, come on, guys. Now, I'm not going to play this game. I think it's very important to talk about how we're winning. I think it's very important to take an opportunity whenever we have the chance to talk about the impact of the Bud Light boycott and how it continually gets worse. Part of me feels it's kind of like beating a dead horse. We did it. We won. But, I've said before, I'm like, I guess we're wrapping up the Bud Light story with a nice little bow, but it's not changing. It's actually getting worse. And so the issue here is I want to make sure we all know that this cultural force is persistent. With the success of things like Sound of Freedom, Public Square, and all these brands, we are winning and building that parallel economy. And so it's not so much just about this beer. It's about our cultural impact is expanding. It's not about being conservative. This is the most annoying thing. The left views anybody outside of the cult as conservative. That's what it means. So there's been criticisms of me because I'll say we and our, and they say he must be talking about conservatives. I'm not. I'm talking about classical liberals, libertarians, disaffected liberals. There's a whole faction of people who disagree on a wide range of political issues that don't like what the cult is doing. I want to make sure that framing is sound. But let's talk about this news, and then we'll go through the cultural victories that we've been seeing, because there's a lot of updates in this regard. One of the most important things I want to highlight is the Bud Light boycott is a historical event on Wikipedia. That's right. 100 years from now, people will talk about the cultural shift caused by the 2023 Bud Light boycott. How amazing is that? And when I saw the news that Bud Light had dropped to 14th place, I'm like, okay, man, it's getting worse. They were number 1. They were number 1 in sales, number 2 in sales now, but now among consumers, 14th place. That's crazy. We're seeing bottling plants shut down. And then what do I see? Viral clickbait about Dylan Mulvaney. Okay, we may take issues with the algorithmic manipulation that comes from characters like Dylan Mulvaney, from apps like TikTok and Instagram and all of that. But let's just call this out for what it is. While it is true that Dylan Mulvaney claims that they don't feel safe in the U.S. anymore, it's not fleeing to Peru. It's a vacation. And I'm not gonna play this game. Look, we are winning on the culture war front. We don't need people sharing stories like this that grossly exaggerate. Dylan Mulvaney took a vacation to South America to go look at llamas and do shaman stuff. People do it all the time. When Dave Chappelle went to like some retreat, they were like, he had a mental breakdown and went to get some like weird shaman stuff. It's like, bro, took a vacation. Calm down. Well, here's the story, because it's mostly like half true, right? Dylan Mulvaney has fled to Peru for some much needed solo travel and soul searching after she complained she no longer felt safe in the U.S. The trans influencer 26 has been at the center of scandals. We know. She told fans in a series of videos, which included posing with a llama, okay, surprise, I'm in Peru. I'm at Machu Picchu. Isn't this so beautiful? Dylan Mulvaney's laughing and having a good, look, man, we talked about this on Timcast IRL. It may have been, or actually, no, I think it was the culture war. We were talking about Chelsea Handler and how these conservatives, people like Ben Shapiro, I like Ben Shapiro, and they were saying like, this woman is miserable. She's miserable. I'm like, why are you saying that? Why lie? Chelsea Handler made a video where she said she wakes up early in the morning, does drugs, and masturbates. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like she's miserable. To be fair, to like the likes of Ben Shapiro and other conservatives who were directly criticizing Chelsea Handler, many of these childless single women, what are they called? Sinks, single income, no kids. They're on antidepressants, SSRIs and things like that. They're on medication. So to be fair, I don't think you get to say that you're happy if you're taking antidepressants. You got mood stabilizers. You're probably not happy. And there are a lot of people who exercise and eat right every day who are. So to be fair, in the greater sense of things as it pertains to what Ben Shapiro's point was and other conservatives, maybe not Chelsea Handler specifically, but many of these liberal women who are choosing to just have careers and live by themselves, wake up, do drugs and masturbate, they're not happy at all. Because there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment. And so I think that's what we're seeing with the modern left. But in this, I want to point out, Dylan Mulvaney is probably having a very, very good time. It is absolutely dopamine triggering to have millions of followers praising you all day nonstop. Of course, you have to balance that with all of the negative press, which does an opposite and inverse pull. But for me, I suppose, when you first get into this industry, there is a shock to the system. It's a new experience. It's indescribable. Where I remember when I had like 5,000 followers on Twitter, it was a weird feeling and it was scary. All of a sudden, I was having tons of people just insult me nonstop all day, every day. Why? Because people are nasty. How much praise was I getting? Not that much. You do a couple good things, you get some praise for it, and then everyone attacks you relentlessly. But eventually you numb to it. You realize, hey, wait a minute, these people are full of it, and there's no reason to listen to what they have to say. And thus, you start to feel good. But the question is it fulfilling to just chase after that dopamine rush of positive attention on social media while blocking out the negative? It's not real fulfillment. So you'll get people who pretend to be happy, Dylan Mulvaney, and in the end, they're probably on some kind of mind-altering medication to stabilize their mood because they can't handle it. I think if you look at people like Dylan Mulvaney, you'll see short-term happiness. I have no problem saying that many of these people are probably very happy. I mean, going to Peru, being with llamas sounds like a whole lot of fun. But the scary thing is where you end up. And that's what I see with the culture war, with the right, with Anheuser-Busch stuff, why I think it's so important to win the culture war, because I'm a person who believes in long-term investment. That is to say, it may feel really good to have a short-term gain, but the real value is knowing that in 10 years, you are going to be set. Things are going to be good. And it's funny because people often think of the now, and this is a very leftist approach to life. They think about the now and they ignore the future. And then I love this because, people always say, like, they ask older people, what's one bit of advice you would give to a younger person? They're like, take care of your teeth. It's like, yeah, I hope y'all are doing that. And right now, personally, I'm dealing with a sports injury. Nothing I could have done about it. But it makes you think like, wow, you really take things for granted, don't you? You really take things for granted. It makes me wonder about where the left goes with their worldview in their lives. Bud Light chased after this short-term goal, the short-term gain. They didn't pay attention to what was going on. They didn't apologize. They just went for the short term, and now they're imploding. And this is where we are. This is, I guess, the point I'm trying to make as I get through this and talk about the culture war issues is the view we have in terms of, I'm not talking about conservatives, calm down, weirdos. I'm talking about typical investment. The reason why we fight this culture war, it's not for conservative values in my world. It's for benefiting humans in the long run. A little bit of hard work in the short term, a little bit of sacrifice, and things will be generally better for everybody. And that's the purpose of boycotting companies like Bud Light. Sure, it may be easier. It may feel good just to grab a beer, pop it open, have a drink. And it's hard to boycott companies. You know, I'll tell you this. You guys know that I typically would watch all the MCU stuff. I got rid of Disney Plus a long time ago because they were praising the Uyghur Muslims. I guess Secret Invasion is out, the new show. Haven't seen it. Not going to see it. Probably won't, because I'm not buying Disney Plus. Now, if a Marvel film comes out, I'll probably go see it because there's a difference between going to see in the movie. But I look, my point is, I said no Disney Plus, no Disney Plus. Some may say, well, get rid of all Marvel films. Well, there's pros and there's cons. I recognize there is a challenge here in that I don't know anything about Secret Invasion, and it may be culturally relevant. People may want to talk about it and look to what's in it. Perhaps I should watch it. But I don't know. I think I'd rather watch Sound of Freedom. I'd rather watch things that are pushing that shift and make slow and gradual changes in this direction. That's why I say to people, become a member at timcast.com, but I don't expect you to cancel Netflix, Disney, Paramount, whatever, because we want entertainment. It's not reasonable for anyone to say, look, we're going to build a parallel economy, get rid of everything you've ever done and have this dramatic change overnight. We have to build and through competition win that battle. Right now, we are. And that's the point. Bud Light plummets to 14th place. You see, that is victory. As Bud Light, once a beloved contender among the country's favorite beers, spirals to the 14th spot, the repercussions resonate far beyond the brand itself. They say a recent YouGov survey reveals the decline in Bud Light's ranking, casting it below competitors like Pabst, Miller Lite. The seismic shift in popularity jeopardizes the livelihoods of 65,000 people. We had a big debate about this on the show. I said, too bad. 645 people lost their jobs. They worked at a bottling plant that mainly made bottles for Bud Light. And the debate I had was basically, I think it was Matt Brainerd. He was saying, like, these are regular people who don't know anything about this and they're losing their jobs and we need their votes. And I'm like, too bad. I'm sorry. I mean it, too bad. In my world, you do not get to ignore everything around you and then whinge when bad things happen. Sorry. I don't want regular working class people to be harmed, but let's be honest. It is the fact that regular working class people tuned out the real world and said, I don't care about politics, that leads to this problem. I met a lot of people. I meet a lot of people. And I met a couple people who have said, oh, I used to watch your show all the time. And I said, used to? I was talking about this the other day. I met a guy, cool dude. We had a good time. We played poker. He bluffed me out of a hand and took a bunch of my money. It was fine though. That's the game. It's fun. And he's like, I had to bluff you, Tim. I had to at least once. And I'm like, fair play. But he said, I used to watch your show and I don't really anymore. And I said, used to. He said, I got burned out from politics. I say, okay, I get it. I'm not going to criticize the individual in this regard. I don't know what this guy does for a living. It was fun playing poker with this guy. But I just want to stress, if you work at a Bud Light bottling plant and you lose your job, I have no sympathy. Okay, maybe a little sympathy, because I don't want you to lose your job. You know what I mean? But my worldview is basically this. There are a lot of people that say, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to pay attention. And then bad things start happening all around them. Their children are being groomed and indoctrinated. They wake up one day to find that their kid despises them. And they're like, how could this have happened? Because you weren't doing your duties. You ignored your civic responsibility. You sat back, tuned the world out and said, I just want to watch the game and drink a beer. And you know what? I can hear it already. A lot of people saying like, look, man, I work really hard all day, every day. I'm focused. It's not my job to pay attention to the world. There is a civic responsibility within all of you, within me, within you, within everybody else. I don't expect everybody to watch the news 24/7 and to do the amount of research that I or the Timcast news team does. But if you're not paying attention and a boulder comes crashing down and wipes out your house, it's like, dude, you had forewarning. You ignored your responsibility to the world. You don't get to tune out the problems of the world, close your eyes, plug your ears, and put blinders on and cross your fingers that everything will be okay. That has never been how the world works. So what we see now, you have people in their homes knowing step by step the violent extremists, Antifa, BLM will go to your door, threaten your life, and they think if I just close my eyes and duck my head, it will wash over me. And you know what happens? It doesn't. Like the viral Instagram posts, or I'm sorry, Twitter posts from that guy who's like, yeah, they're rioting. Oh no, they're coming to my neighborhood. Quick, what do I do? Get out of here. That's the reality of it. Bud Light's collapsing because more and more of you, people like you and me, have started to pay attention and say something is deeply wrong in this country. And we can't just sit by. We're seeing Anheuser-Busch brands across the board crash. Look at this one. I love this. CNN misgenders Dylan Mulvaney in cringe segment. They're losing. They're losing the culture war. You got to pay attention to this stuff, all right? Sound of freedom is skyrocketing. My point is this. It is not to come down on you or anybody else to argue that you're not doing enough. It's to point out that you are doing more than enough at this point. That's my point. It's not to come down and be like, well, you abandoned your responsibility. No. It's the opposite. I am saying, finally, people like you and me, regular people, have put their ear to the ground and said, I'm going to do as much as I can. So maybe you work at a bottling plant, but let me tell you this. They say all these jobs are at risk. You had 3 months warning if you worked at that bottling plant to know that sales were tanking. People do not support Bud Light. And the argument is, well, but they just make glass bottles. Nope, sorry. You are a cog in the machine that produces Bud Light. And we are rejecting Bud Light. That means all the distributors, the drivers, the bottling plants, you're going to lose your jobs. So the warning is crystal clear right now. You should be looking for a new line of work. Now, perhaps you can argue, I didn't know Bud Light was going to do this. I know. I understand. But they did. If you work at a company that did a horrible thing, a shock to the system that's resulting in a major crisis for the brand, you think you can just sit there? Here's the point, man. Bud Light accidentally started a fire playing with matches. The fire is raging through the brand. Don't think you can just sit in that building. The way I described it before is that you're basically in the living room. Somebody was playing with matches in the garage. The garage is up in flames. The flames are spreading to the house, and you're like, I think I'll be fine. Then eventually the fires reach the living room. You're forced out into the street, and you're like, this is not fair. Why do I have to leave the house? It's like, bro, it's not that we were forcing you to leave the house. It's that you can't stay inside when it's burning down. And the people who choose to are going to be hit the hardest. The point is, we're watching it all take place right before our eyes. They're freaking out in the media. We don't need these, Dylan Mulvaney flees the country. But I get it. Dylan Mulvaney went on vacation. It's not a big deal. However, understand this. As the news cascades and the videos go viral and more views are reaching these eyeballs, it is a domino effect. Last night, I did a segment about Costco dropping Bud Light at some of its locations. 400 and some odd thousand views already. Wow. That's a lot of views for one of my videos. Typically I get like high 100, like 190 to 200,000 views. The more culturally relevant ones do 250. I don't make videos based on how many views I expect to get, to be completely honest. I got a video from last night about a Georgia Democrat quitting the party I thought was important. 100,000 views. It's like, 120,000 views. I know that I can do videos like this and probably get substantially more. I know I can make a video and just be like, Dylan Mulvaney's losing it and, get a bunch of views or whatever. But it's not always about that. But I will say for other people, this is the point. It is. And this is what drives the cultural forces in this country. So pay attention. If people see that video gets 400,000 views, they're going to make more videos about it. They're going to make more videos roasting Bud Light, and that cascade effect, the Bud Light effect, will get substantially worse. As more and more bad things happen to Bud Light, more people will complain about Bud Light. More people will see an opportunity to complain about Bud Light, and Bud Light will suffer further and further and further. This cascade, this maelstrom cannot be stopped. I don't know where it goes. Now we're seeing, because of the consumer inflation is very, very low, 3%, the good news across the board. I don't know if you want to give credit to Joe Biden. There's a lot of factors that play a role in this, but if I'm going to criticize his leadership across the board, hey, look, it's his leadership that sees these changes happening. I still think you got to put it in the context of the major collapse, which affected 2 different presidencies. The point is this. It is going to get worse for brands like Bud Light. The stock may be going up because all stocks across the board are going up, so sure. But it's going to get worse for Bud Light, and I have to believe that if media outlets like the Daily Mail and other conservative commentators and culture warriors are claiming Dylan Mulvaney is freaking out and fleeing, the opportunity exists in the mind of anybody making content and news to frame things in this way because it generates traffic. That's what we saw with the woke stuff. So we may be seeing an inversion of that. This new decade, 2023, we may see the inversion of the culture wars, in that the real opportunity to make money, of course, is anti-woke. And that's it. Bud Light is that shift. So that's good news for conservatives, for Republicans. It seems like that is the path we're on. If you are anti-woke, you will start making tons of money. If you're the likes of CNN or the Daily Beast, you're going to lose your job. Vice media laying people off. These big corporate press outlets are crumbling and collapsing. And Benny Johnson's getting millions of subscribers. New podcasts are popping up. Rumble is taking off. It looks like the shift is here. And this decade will be a major cultural shift in this country. That's what it's all about. Not to make a video where I say, oh, this, that, these leftists are. No, I'm like, dude, this is not about negativity. We're winning. We stay the course. I imagine a future. Man, let me tell you about the world I envision. I grew up going to Catholic school. Family ultimately decided, we're not going to have you go there anymore. I'm not a devout religious individual. But I do believe there is a fine balance in understanding moral values and how they stem from religion, and understanding moral philosophies and their root in religion and things like that. I think they're important. I do. I imagine, when I grew up, we were not the wealthiest family, but we had Christmas. We'd wake up and there'd be presents. We were not the richest family. I remember putting up candles and putting on Christmas music. These are fond memories I have of childhood. And it's sad to see that these things were being gutted and attacked in this country. The family is the basis for a strong nation, a strong community, and a strong culture. Family. And we want strong family. Protecting children. We say some things kids should not see, but you can see moral degeneracy on the left. No limits, no bounds, attacking of children. And we've said this has gone too far. So the future I see is not devout Christian or religious. It just has strong family connections and ties, strong moral values pertaining to protecting children, and saying we should not just expose every child to everything imaginable like gore and lewd and lascivious behavior. We let kids be kids. We teach them the values of hard work and meritocracy. And as they get older, they have an opportunity to understand the more dark side of life in this world. If the left were to win the culture war, it would be more extreme in just exposing kids to the most vile and graphic things. And that's what they've been doing. But also the creepy cult-like behaviors. I'm not about that. I believe in enlightenment, strong moral philosophies, strong moral frameworks, and a true understanding of why we have these things. Not just blind faith. I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of truly asking the questions, navigating the system, and trying to figure out how and why we've done the things we have in the past, weeding out the bad, keeping the good. And there is so much good that comes from much of our moral traditions. Also, there were a lot of bad, but we've done away with those bad things and we continue to do so. The left would embrace the darkest elements and push them on us. That's not what I see right now in the culture war. That's not what I see right now with the left and right. They say right wing, whatever you want to call it. There are libertarians, the Mises Caucus. There are disaffected liberals, where I probably fall. There are conservatives. We disagree on things like abortion, taxation, reach of government, borders, etc. But they call all of us right-wing and conservative. Why? Because we don't agree with the psychotic death cult that seeks to burn down everything. And here's what matters. We're winning. Conservative boycotts, call it whatever you want. I don't care. We want to make sure we frame things in the way that matters most. So I will tell you this. The media will try and call all of this conservative for the sake of isolating us. But I'm not a conservative. And conservatives know this. Liberals, I shouldn't say liberals, cult members will call me a conservative. They'll call any disaffected liberal, they'll call any socialist, anyone who disagrees with their deranged death cult, they'll call them conservatives, right-wing, or shills, or grifters. They can't call Jimmy Dore right-wing so much because he's got socialist policies, so they'll call him a grifter. They'll say the same thing to me. But it's funny. In the end, we find that we are winning. Why? More and more people, even the Young Turks, are being pushed out into the wide open spaces of differing worldviews and opinions that disagree with the cult. In the long run, we are winning, and that's the point. Bud Light's collapse. Talk about that. Wow. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.